Look at these picturesque shots. A country that has no access to the sea, with amazingly beautiful nature, but where there are no huge oil reserves or any other minerals, except for the extraction of iron ore. But on a global scale, this ore is just a drop in the ocean. And yet, in this beautiful country, by law, you can't pay a worker less than 2,400 euros, which is almost 210,000 rubles in our currency, even if he has no education, no experience, or anything else. Lately, people have been talking about this country more and more as a space power. The government spends almost 2% of the gross domestic product on developing this industry, and that's a lot. In 10 years, they'll spend up to 5% of gross domestic product on space. The government cares so much about its future that it even passed a law on mining resources from asteroids. Right now, of course, all this sounds like science fiction. But who knows? Maybe soon it will be exactly these kinds of laws that will help this country acquire resources from other celestial bodies. Have you guessed which country we're talking about? We want to remain the way we are. These are the very words engraved on the pediment of the capital's town hall in Luxembourg. People here have fought for this right for over 1,000 years. But is it only independence that allows Luxembourg to be the richest country in Europe? What is the main secret of this country? What is going on with Luxembourg? Let's find out. It's surprising how little the average person knows about this country beyond its name. Indeed, it's a small patch of land with a population of 640,000 people. That's about the same as Barnaul or Ijevsk, on a tiny triangle that you could only spot on the world map with a microscope. In the northwest of Europe, between France, Germany, and Belgium, there is a country with an unusually high standard of living. To understand the scale of their success, we need to talk about numbers. These are just the facts. In the ranking of countries by level of prosperity, it is in 7th place. Even countries like Germany, South Korea, and the United Arab Emirates are behind. There are a lot of wealthy people in Luxembourg. Probably, someone will say that money doesn't buy happiness. That's true. But wait, and according to the Happiness Index, Luxembourgers are at the top. There are almost no murders here. By their number, the country is only in 214th place. Luxembourg is among the top 10 countries in the world with the highest level of freedom. And the average life expectancy of a citizen of this country is 82 years. It's a real paradise. And no matter which ranking you look at, the country presents itself with dignity. There are as many as 739 cars for every 1,000 Luxembourgers. For comparison, Russia has 324, and the United Kingdom has 519. The minimum salary in the country is 2,387 euros per month. Just take a look at the chart of minimum wage growth in Luxembourg. But to be fair, it's worth remembering that local prices are among the highest in Europe. But how did this happen? So what's the secret to the success of this tiny country? These riches don't just fall from the sky for them. Of course not. Although, according to journalistic investigations, Luxembourg is the largest offshore haven on the planet. In 2013, authorities vowed to end the country's offshore practices and stop attracting global businesses, all because Germany and France, Europe's giants, took a hard stance. At that time, the government of Luxembourg declared its readiness to strengthen cooperation with foreign tax authorities. But did this lead to anything? Of course not. A couple of years ago, journalists gained access to millions of documents about the owners of Luxembourg companies. Just think about it. 55,000 offshore companies managing assets worth 7 trillion euros. Not millions, not billions, but trillions. That's an incredible amount. All this wealth is concentrated in just 2,000 square kilometers. Cristiano Ronaldo, Brad Pitt, the King of Bahrain, and many other ultra-wealthy people have made this financial paradise their home. The leaked documents contained information about 37 out of the 50 richest people in France. What are they all doing in Luxembourg? The answer is simple. They're hiding their money. Funds of questionable origin are coming into local companies from all over the world. Using Luxembourg companies gives a significant tax advantage in stock transactions. For example, If a few simple conditions are met, you can completely exempt profits from the sale of shares from taxes. Here's what a Spanish official investigating financial fraud has to say about it. Luxembourg acts as an intermediary state, which by its actions, either accidentally or intentionally, allows criminals and corrupt officials from all over the world to use it for money laundering. Luxembourg leads all cities worldwide in the number of banks located there. They are literally everywhere. An abnormally large number of the country's citizens are employed in the banking sector. At the same time, the Ministry of Justice of Luxembourg states that it is necessary to remember the right to privacy and anonymity of clients. It's understandable. The state has no intention of giving up its income. Bank secrecy here is inviolable. If you transfer your money to a Luxembourg bank, no one, literally no one, will know about it. With one caveat. In banks in Luxembourg and Belgium, the assets of Russian investors totaling 6 trillion rubles have been frozen, and there are no guarantees that this money will be unfrozen. Most likely, it will remain in these financial institutions forever. Nevertheless, many billionaires from different parts of the world prefer to live here specifically to free themselves from the tax burden. Luxembourg is called a tax haven for a reason, which has consequences. Subtitles a proofreader. In terms of gross domestic product per capita, the country ranks first in the world, ahead of all oil-producing states and economic giants like the United States or Germany. Its per capita gross domestic product is almost 3 times higher than that of Saudi Arabia, and 4 times higher than Russia's. Journalists and investigators of tax schemes in Luxembourg often end up in court. Investigating the origins of billions of dollars is a dangerous business. The tricks used by the world's corporations to avoid taxes are meant to remain secret. This is the principle that guides the country's authorities. Continued. And the authorities definitely wouldn't have been able to create such an oasis of prosperity if the country hadn't defended its independence. The history of Luxembourg began back in 963, when a massive rock was given to Count Siegfried, on which a castle was built. Siegfried's descendants expanded their territories through wars, political marriages, and treaties. Remarkably, a state founded as a solitary fortress in Europe has survived for centuries and still exists today. Empires rose and fell, alliances came and went, yet Luxembourg remains today. Of course, various states laid claim to this territory. All this repeatedly led to bloody battles, and the fortress was besieged more than 20 times. By the way, Russia also played a role in the fate of this state. After Napoleon's empire fell, Luxembourg's status was uncertain. It was complete confusion. Luxembourg, on one hand, was an independent principality, but on the other hand, it was headed by the King of the Netherlands. This king, his name was William. The first one imposed high taxes on the country's citizens, and they constantly went on strike and caused a lot of problems. In the end, after a lot of trouble, in 1866, the authorities decided to sell Luxembourg to France. But the German part of the population was against it, and in 1867, it was decided to convene a special conference on the Luxembourg question. At this conference, Russia, Great Britain, France, and Prussia signed a treaty recognizing Luxembourg as a permanently neutral state, and for almost half a century, the tiny state maintained this status, despite all the power struggles that were happening in Europe at the time. In 1914, Germany unsuccessfully tried to annex the country, and during World War II, it occupied Luxembourg and carried out forced Germanization there. And this was despite the fact that in 1939, Hitler promised Luxembourg that he would not seize the country and that he respected its neutrality. But he did not keep his word. The ruling elite was exiled. Editor. More than 2% of the duchy's population died in that war, but as a result, the country was still able to preserve its independence. It sounds surprising, but by 1940, when all of Europe was preparing for a major bloody war, the armed forces of Luxembourg numbered only 294 soldiers and non-commissioned officers, and a few military personnel from the company of the Royal Gendarmerie. They didn't have a single chance to defend themselves. At one time, the French, Spanish, Dutch, and Austrians also ruled here. That's why Luxembourg eventually became smaller over time. The country's territory was once 3 times larger than it is today. As for the ruling dynasty, by tradition, the throne of the Grand Duchy is passed on to the eldest male in the family. The ducal family is very popular among Luxembourgers. It symbolizes stability and prosperity for the small nation. The country has been lucky with its rulers. Luxembourg's ties with European Freemasonry have also played their part. Well, in our time, the country is under the wing of NATO. But what about neutrality? An attentive viewer might ask. They did everything cleverly. First, in 1948, the article about neutrality was removed from the Constitution of Luxembourg. And already the next year, the Grand Duchy joined the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Thus, a state with armed forces of just 900 people was able to get reliable protection. Now, there are several important NATO military bases located in Luxembourg, where combat equipment and supplies for the United States Rapid Deployment Forces are stored. The United States assures that in the event of an attack on its tiny partner, it will provide Luxembourg with comprehensive support. Few realize that half of Luxembourg's population are immigrants without citizenship, and this benefits the passport holders. They don't want to share their privileges, high payments, and benefits. Another interesting fact is that among the native residents, there are many retirees who own land worth millions of euros. Despite the size of the country, Luxembourg is home to the Secretariat of the European Parliament, the European Investment Bank, and the European Court of Auditors. Large organizations strive to have an office right here. By the way, everyone probably knows about Schengen. There is a visa that allows you to easily travel across a whole range of European countries. So this agreement was signed in the village of Schengen, which is located in Luxembourg. In summary, it's worth noting that it is Finland's financial sector that provides the country with the highest per capita income in the European Union. It's not surprising the country's authorities are doing everything possible to protect their business model and probably won't follow European politicians discussing democracy and an open economy. After all, when it comes to big money, all those things take a back seat. Thank you for watching, and see you in future episodes on our channel.